Welcome to Sharing Soulful Stories. Today I'm here with Joanna Turner. Welcome, Joanna.
Hey, lovely. I'm excited.
It is so lovely to have you here. So let me tell everyone a bit more about you. Joanna Turner is an international speaker and leading spiritual success mentor and former chartered accountant, which is an interesting thing we have in common. She is a mentor to female entrepreneurs and specialises in busting money blocks and helping them to alchemize fear into flow and awaken their infinite possibility. Joanna acts as a bridge between the spiritual and business worlds, combining her strong business acumen gained from spending 17 years in finance with her years of spiritual practice, including being a Shamanic Reiki practitioner and Master NLP Practitioner. She is the founder of Akashic Alchemy, teaching people to read their own Akashic Records using her simple technique to align their soul purpose and beyond. She is a digital nomad and is on a mission to raise the frequency of the planet. She was nominated for the Telstra Business Woman of the Year award in the Entrepreneurship category. Welcome, Joanna. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Now, you obviously know that we're here to talk about spirituality. And one of my biggest desires is to expand the definition of that word. So I would love to open with, what does spirituality mean to you?
Such a good question. For me, it's about coming back to myself, as well as my connection to source and the universe, the divine, whatever you want to call it. So for me, initially it was about all connecting. I was looking outside of myself for answers. Then I realized that wasn't working. So I had to come into myself for the answers. And so it's a connection of coming within, connecting up to source, but also more recently, it's been going down the way as well to Mama Earth and really grounding and balancing out those energies. So it was initially this inward and then upward, and now it's about deep embodiment and downwards as well. So I feel like we have to do all of them, and I feel like there's a huge missing component in the spiritual woo-woo world. Most people are all floating up in a cloud somewhere. So I really big champion of bringing it back down again.
I love that you shared that side of it, because I feel that's where my journey started too. I was like floating up in the clouds and realized to actually make a difference, we need to bring it down and like land it here on the earth. So thank you so much for that. I would love to know though, has spirituality, you mentioned looking outside of yourself and then going within, has spirituality always been part of your life, or was there some sort of trigger event that caused that inward shift?
It absolutely has not been part of my life. I'm originally from Scotland, if you can't tell from my accent, and I went to Sunday school with my parents. We were Church of Scotland, but we weren't particularly religious even. We sort of went to Sunday school and that was about it. And my dad liked to go to church just to sing the hymns at Christmas and at Easter. So there wasn't a lot of that within our household. I think the closest I got to a sort of connection when I was young was when I was about 14. My entire bedroom was full of entities, and I had this weekend of really weird and wonderful visitations and visions and just being off the planet. And it was a very bizarre experience. The whole sort of 3 days of me being on another planet was very weird. And it was really disconcerting for my parents to the point where my mum actually marched me to the doctor and told the doctor I was losing my mind and please do something about my crazy daughter. So at the time, I spoke to the entities and I asked them to leave and sent them back into the light. I mean, I was like 14. I had no idea what the heck I was up to, as well as sort of astral projecting and being all sorts of outside of my body. And but being marched down to the doctors because your mother thinks you're insane, I shut it down. I shut all that down pretty hardcore. And I would actually say I was a firm non-believer atheist, and just didn't really get, I thought it was just all nonsense. I didn't want to buy into it. So I was firmly in the I'm going to go and figure this out mode myself. But also at the same time, I had this sort of, there must be something more mode, like always sort of, I'm like, what else is there? So that was always the question that took me on all over the world, traveling, looking for some answers. My first stop, I started going to, well, in my 20s in my 20s, I was basically drunk for most of them, looking for the answers in a bottle of wine, like so many people, because we don't know what we're doing. And I was in those years, similar to you, like I was a chartered accountant. I was studying either for chartered accountancy exams or working in big corporations, doing that work, in finance departments. And I wasn't happy. I was just miserable. And it's just that, so I thought if I traveled, maybe I'll find the answers. And so I decided I'd go to every world wonder. I thought the answers must be at the world wonders. And so I started ticking off in my 20s, going to all the world wonders, very unconsciously, but I just thought that might be where I would figure it out. So from the Taj Mahal to the Great Wall of China, and like I would just go on these epic adventures, looking for answers. So it was always within me, but maybe looking for an answer, but I didn't know where the heck to look or what to do. I think the first little hint of something coming my way was, it was actually from my sister, ironically, because I've gone full into it and she hasn't quite done that. But she recommended a Tony Robbins book to me, Awaken the Giant Within, probably in like 2004, 2005. But I didn't get very far with it. I think I got to the point where I had to do the first exercise, like actually sit and write down some goals. And I just stopped. I shut the book and I was like, oh, I would actually have to think about and do something. So that was the end of that. And then it was The Secret came out and I was like, ooh. And I went wild with The Secret. I was so excited when the book The Secret came out that I was sending copies of it to my friends and family and forcing people to come over to my apartment to watch the DVD. So I was like, there's this thing. It's like amazing. You've got to come. And so I was being a little bit, I got a little bit excited about that, but it wasn't really, I could go, I mean, the story goes on, but it was just little tiny hints along the way kind of started the journey unfolding. So no, it definitely hasn't been in my life the whole time. I love so many. I'll stop.
I love so much of what you said there because, it's funny, that whole chartered accountancy background similarity, that the whole culture is drowning in a bottle of wine type thing. It was so around you all the time. It was hard to see other possibilities. And the idea of a book being a way that, something's here that I've felt before and I want to explore and share and tell everyone about it. Love that. So in terms of sharing a bit more of your story though, is there highs and lows that stand out as things you would help us get from The Secret to now, which is obviously quite a journey?
Yes, and it's been getting weirder and wilder. So after I spent my 20s, again, just a bit bored, looking for answers, maybe running away from myself a little bit, I moved to Bermuda when I was 24 to continue to work in finance. But I thought if I'm doing something I'm not in love with, at least I'm going to do it somewhere nice. So I had a really beautiful experience over there. I did very well in my career in a very short amount of time. But it was one of those work hard, play hard societies. So I was either extreme exercising on one end of the spectrum to try and control my weight, or I was, extreme drinking on the other side, trying to chase boys and never quite catching them. And so this kind of just led me. So I was just a little confused and I up and down with my weight massively. And when it was time to leave Bermuda, I was like, I've got to get out of here before I'm 30. Like it just felt like a drop dead date. Now I know I was in my Saturn return, had no idea at the time, but I just knew I had to get out of there before I turned 30. So when I was leaving there, this was in 2010, that just gave away, I'm 38 now, if anyone's trying to do the maths. I decided to go to Thailand, and I was like, I'd never heard of another person living that I knew who had ever done a detox. Like, it just wasn't part of my culture. Nobody knew about it. Nobody I ever knew had even been to Thailand, I don't think. And I just had this inkling. I was like, I'm going to go to Thailand and do a detox. And I joked to some of my friends because I'd gained weight again towards the end of being in Bermuda. And I just felt sluggish. And I was just like, kind of like, I just can't do this anymore. So I was starting a year of travel because I got made redundant. GFC hit and I was made redundant, which was often is a gateway and an opening for so many people because I just wasn't on the right path. So I was given this beautiful gift of redundancy. And as I took off to Thailand, I was telling people I was going to rehab, and they were just like, oh yeah, good luck. Yeah, probably not a bad idea. And I'm like, no, I'm actually just going to detox. And they were like, yeah, rehab, detox, good luck, So it was definitely needed, and unfortunately not very shocking to people, but that's actually what I needed. But when I was there, and it all really looking for a solution to my energy and my weight. And when I was there, they offered lots of other things that would help me lose more weight. So I'm detoxing hard, not fasting for 10 days, doing colonics for the first time, on all these crazy herbs, going to yoga, meditating for the first time. And all of this was just brand new to me. And it was just an amazing. And I started speaking to people, and they're telling me about natural health and the toxins in our food. And my brain was just like, what? This is a massive conspiracy. I had no idea. And there as well as another gateway to potentially lose some weight, I had a numerology reading, my first ever astrology reading, and I had my first ever regression. And it was this with a clairvoyant psychic regression guy, and I did not know what the heck I was walking into. And in that regression, he took me back to a lifetime when I was a witch. And in that regression, he had me lying there and chanting. So in that lifetime, my father in this lifetime was my little boy, and I was killed for using my spiritual powers, and it caused my now father, then son, all of this tremendous pain. And so in that lifetime, I made all of these vows and decisions to never have children, and never use my spiritual powers because it hurt the people I was closest to. And in this regression, he had me chanting, I release and let go my any vows I've made to not use my spiritual powers. And I'm lying there chanting this stuff, but at the same time thinking, hey, I'm an accountant. I just came here for the weight loss. Like I just didn't even I just didn't really understand what was happening. And anyway, we came to a conclusion. I cried buckets. It was really part of my first ever personal development or releasing of any type. And it wasn't until about 6 or 7 years later that I started hearing other people talking about witch past lives and all these kind of things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I uncovered that and released some of that back in 2010. So I think that was part of a doorway that opened. And also in that exploration and weight loss journey, when I got to Thailand, I basically didn't speak to anybody or do anything apart from sleep and eat for about 3 or 4 days. And I'd seen a flyer on one of the tables when I got there, and it just said family constellations work. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this thing. Come on, Joe, go and talk to somebody. Like, you've just slept for 3 days, like time to go and speak to somebody. And I walked into that thing, and the guy, I think I was one of the first there, and he said, oh, why are you here? I said, oh, I saw the flyer. I thought it was interesting. And he just looked at me and went, why are you really here? And I just lost it. And I was just bawling. And I didn't know what to do with this emotion. I was like, what is happening to me? I didn't even realize I had all this stuff. And so I ended up booking a session with him a couple of days later. And first of all, he wouldn't work with me. Then he decided he would. And he was like, oh, I can't work with you unless your chakras are open. And I didn't even know back in those days, Joanna, what a chakra was. I was like, I don't know how you're going to check that, because I don't know what they are. I don't know if I have any. And I certainly, if they're not open, I don't know how the fuck to open them. So I don't know if we're going to work together or not. Right. So I was so green. I just didn't know. I was just like, I don't know. So anyway, he decided at some point my chakras were open enough to do some work. And again, I just was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't believe in energy. I don't trust this stuff. But it was such an incredibly powerful session. And he's like, whoa, that was some crazy shit today. Like he'd said he'd never experienced anything like it either. And I was just like, this is intense stuff. And it was kind of like my little gateway. But anyway, I go on another journey. I go back there a year later, still searching for this thing, do more releasing work, find out about more different past lives, where I was a medicine man, and, you know, it just all these different weird and wonderful things. And then I moved to Australia, and to do that, I had to get a job. So I went back to being an accountant for another 3.5 years when I moved to Australia, because I didn't have any other plan. I'm like, this stuff interests me, but what the heck would I do with it? I'm an accountant. Like, what else am I going to do? So very luckily, the accountancy brought me to Australia, where I'm currently am at the moment. And then just to sort of almost wrap this piece up, but I was working even harder than I had before, gained even more weight than I had before working in the job that I hated, started having panic attacks. My hair started falling out in big clumps. I had two bouts of that, and happened to happen about 3 months after a busy season at work. So after a stressful event, often a couple of months later, your hair starts to fall out. Didn't realize that until retrospectively. And I was just miserable, and I was just getting up. I would eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner often at my work desk. We worked weekends. And I was just like, I'm thoroughly miserable. But I didn't understand. I was exhausted. I was just exhausted. And I was very lucky. I did follow the breadcrumbs to the point where I moved in with this girl who happened to be a surf lifesaver in Australia. And she was this gorgeous Eastern European thing. And, you know, I was like, oh, it's all right for her. She like can run up and down the beach in her, you know, bikini and, you know, save lives and whatever. She's like, you should come down and do this. And I was like, I really don't think so. I was, again, at one of my heaviest weights. I'm like, nobody needs to see me running up and down the beach in my bikini. But she and her boyfriend at the time managed to convince me that this would be a good idea. And I was a swimmer, so I thought maybe I can do this. So I go and I turn up and somehow magically manage to pass the swim test after being mortified at having to run up and down the beach in a swimsuit with no sports bra on, because I didn't know what was going on. But I managed to magically pass this swim test, go into 6 weeks of this transformational thing to become a surf lifesaver. And I was probably the most unlikely person to complete the 6-week course, which I did complete. Lost about 10 kilos in the 6 weeks running up and down the beach. And I absolutely loved it. And I loved the transformation that happened within me and supporting other people. So I went and I became an instructor, and being involved in that gave me so much fulfillment. I was like, why am I getting so much from this? And I've got nothing out of my career in comparison to this volunteer work that I'm doing. This is amazing. And so I got deeper and deeper into that world. I got my spinal training. I became vice captain of my patrol, an instructor, and then I did my rescue boat training as well. At the time, it was mainly to meet boys, but anyway, because the boys all worked on the boats, and I was like, oh, this will be a great idea. But it was one day out, once I was qualified on those boats, big waves, I really didn't want to go out. Everything inside of me was saying, don't go. But I felt this sort of, I didn't want to turn up as a weak woman that didn't want to go out in the big waves. I didn't want to let my team down. And so I came up with about 10 excuses, and he was just like, go. And I was like, okay. So I was crew in this boat. We managed to somehow get offshore safely. It's possibly the most dangerous sport you could do. Wouldn't recommend it. Somebody said I wouldn't let anyone I love do that. Like, that's how risky it is. Anyways, we're crashing over waves, and we thumped down over one, and I basically just took the whole brunt of the weight in my lower back. And, you know, there's adrenaline. At the time, I didn't realize how bad it was. And the next morning, I couldn't get out of bed. And I was like, oh, shit, I've just become a statistic. I was spinal trained, so I knew like what the issues were. And I was like, I've really gone and done it. It was in the Christmas holidays. Osteo's closed, chiro's closed. Like, I didn't really know what to do. So eventually I went back to work, and I couldn't sit at my desk. And so what had happened was Spirit, the universe, had actually taken the one thing away from me that I couldn't, to stop me doing the thing that I was doing the most, which was working. So I could lie down flat, I could walk for short amounts of time, but I could not sit for any period of time. So basically I just couldn't sit at my desk. I could do other stuff, but sitting was just so painful. And so I ended up having huge amounts of time off work, and MRIs and x-rays, and seeing all the people, and copious amounts of physio, and just trying to like rehabilitate my back. But in that time, it stopped me from extreme exercising. It stopped me from doing surf lifesaving. It stopped me from doing all of the things I was doing to avoid myself, which was, in retrospect, the gift. So it was, you know, you talk about, you get the feather, the little like hint, you know, like, hello, you're exhausted. Hello, you're tired. Hello, you're having another panic attack. And then you get a brick, which is maybe, you know, maybe the panic attack is the brick. And then finally, when you're not listening, you get hit by a truck, right? And it's that sort of, my lack of listening and my avoidance led to this like massive wake up call. And so that opened the doorway into me questioning my career. Oh, maybe I could study something. Oh, well, I'm not, you know, I wasn't working full time. I wasn't, you know, I just suddenly had this space in my life that I'd not had since I can remember. And I was like, what do people do when they're not exercising and working? Like, or drinking? What do people do? I don't know. So I started studying, and that then led to just discovering the online world and starting my business, and then from there, it's just been this crazy unraveling that's speeded up, and I've found myself in the most weird and wonderful places ever since, and just following all of those little hints. But that's sort of how I got to even starting my business.
Yeah. I kind of don't want you to stop. I want to know all of it, but at the same time, I'm conscious of how long these videos are and people's time. But I just love that, how many things you're exposed to all at once in Thailand, you know, initially. And that you mentioned family constellation work, which I'd never heard of until these series, when I interviewed a woman, you know, last week about that. So that's so interesting that you touched on that. For anyone that missed Catherine Robinson's one, she does that. And then I never knew you were a self-lifesaver. That's so amazing. I wonder how many people know you that don't know that part of the story. Like,
I know. I have some photos floating around of those days. But yeah, I used to do, because one of my avoidance was the extreme exercise. So I did triathlons. I swam Alcatraz Shark Fest. I used to do these crazy long distance ocean swims. And all of that was me trying to prove something to myself, beating my competitive nature, which very much my masculine energy. And so, yeah, I used to, I like did a huge cycle around China. I did just crazy extreme things, mainly trying to avoid or prove something. And it's funny, since I started my business and I'm more fulfilled, I don't feel the need to do any of that crazy shit anymore, which is good.
Amazing. Feeling the need to do it versus wanting to do it, right? Or having a desire to do it, or doing it because you love to do it. That whole, who am I trying to prove this to? Or, you know, I love that. That's such a nice little segue there. But I actually would really love to know, because I know you mentioned that, you know, you get to go to all these fun woo out there, crazy, like lots of different interesting things you're exposed to now, and I wondered, people would potentially be wondering, what does spirituality look like in your kind of more everyday, like how you're weaving it through your life and your business?
So some of my spirituality has taken me to very extreme places, from doing a lot of work with shamans and plant medicines, and just weird and wonderful experience. The entities have returned a few times since those days when I was 14. And so some of that has become part of my day, part of my regular life. Because I've been a nomad for 3.5 years, I've gone to so many retreats and events, and I often sit in ceremonies regularly. If it's not once a month, it might even be more. So I sat 3 times last weekend. And so there's a lot of ceremony, and that is not glamorous in the slightest. It is very much on the floor, usually in somebody's back garden, or out in the middle of nowhere, or in a cave, or in Peru, the middle of the night, in the jungle. So I'm just, that's very unglamorous, and it's taken me to some weird, wonderful places. But it gets a little bit extreme. So like we talked about at the very beginning, for me, where I think we need to take it and why we're here doing this work is where we have to bring it into our businesses. Because there's a lot of people, bless them, no judgment, we're all on different places on our journey, of spending a lot of time in the clouds and just in, I'm thinking maybe like there's a lot of people in Ubud just hanging out, just being in Ubud, right? They're not having much, they're doing a lot of inner work, which is possibly the most important thing we can do for the planet, for other people, right? Like that focus on ourselves, which is yes, and then we need to come and take the action. And well, for me anyway, I know I have a big mission on this planet to really make an impact, a difference. And so I can go off and do those weird, wonderful woo-woo things. And then in my daily practice, it's how I show up, right? So yes, journaling, meditating, opening my Akashic Records as much as possible. Working out for me is spiritual. How I eat, I've been really cleaning up my diet. I've been detoxing. I've gone vegetarian. I don't really drink alcohol anymore, which is, I'm never going to say I'm not going to have another drink, because that would be nuts. And I don't like labels. I don't want to restrict myself in that way, but I got through the whole of Christmas and New Year, and I think I had 1 glass of wine towards the end of that entire period. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even, I was making dinner and my friend was like, hey, like, do you want a glass of wine while you're cooking? And I was like, yeah, actually that would be nice. Mm-hmm. But so for me, it's been this complete change. It also has changed who I spend my time with. My entire friend group has shifted and changed. So not that they're not amazing, wonderful people, and they are. And it's funny because I sort of fell away from people when my beliefs and my ways and things changed. And now it's kind of coming full circle, and some of them are coming back into my life again. And they don't maybe think I'm quite as crazy as they did maybe a year or 2 ago. But there was never any argument or anything. It was just a natural, just sort of shifting and changing of who you spend time with. So who I spend my time with is differently. How I spend my time, obviously I'm running my business full time. So between serving beautiful clients like yourself, or being creative, so that the way I spend my time is so different. I write a lot. I write posts and blogs and newsletters, and I'm writing a book. And so the way I spend my day is dramatically different from how I used to as an accountant with all just spreadsheets up. Who I'm speaking to now, like I love doing interviews with amazing people like yourself, and I do a lot of podcast interviews and like just really cool stuff. So my day is different, and I think that's part of my spiritual development but I bring my spirituality into all that. And then it's really for me about how it translates. So we can get it mentally, right? Like and I got tattoos. That's an interesting spiritual development. I never thought I'd have a tattoo in my entire life. And then I went and got some tattoos, and I was like, oh, I'm now a tattoo person. Didn't see that coming. So yeah, weird things happen. But for me, it's also how I roll through life. I talk about flow and living in flow. And I used to be a control freak. So when I said I had a year off when I was in 2010, I turned 30, had this year off, traveled all over the world. I mean, I had a ball, but it was so planned that I had my plans, flights, hotels, tours booked for the entire year in advance. I didn't miss a flight. I didn't change my mind. And I just did what I had planned to do. So I had controlled my life and my year off to the point where there wasn't much room for miracles. And I used to plan my life to that extent. And so now I live in, I have more space for things to change and to move and to flow, which, and we were just talking about before I jumped on here, like I've had a weird day, like what I thought my life and my next few weeks was going to look like has totally unraveled itself, and I've changed. And in the past I'd have been really upset. Like I was kind of like, oh, that's weird, inconvenient, bit of a pain in the arse. But I was like, immediately my thoughts went to, oh, there must be a good reason for this. Oh, like what is going to come from this? And so I had to like surrender to this greater plan. So I really believe now, and again, I didn't believe in anything, but now I fully believe there's a positive higher power, that I'm guided in everything I do, that I'm protected, that I have a really cool team of spirit guides or whatever you want to, masters and, you know, angels or whatever they are, guiding me and with me on this path. And it just, the synchronicities now that happen in my everyday life, I can't deny that there is something bigger than me out there guiding me and lining this stuff up. And knowing that allows me to relax more and allow it to unfold versus trying to control everything, because it's exhausting. We burn out as women when we're trying to do that. And so me letting go and sort of relaxing into the arms of the universe, as it were, sort of surrendering and leaning back, while taking action, doesn't mean I don't get to continue to show up, is the biggest thing. And the other part is, I used to get really triggered by things, like really upset, and like, when things weren't going my way, I would get really triggered. I'd like feel sort of tight or like upset, and I'm a lot less triggered now than I used to be. And so it doesn't mean things don't happen that I get triggered sometimes, but I'm a lot less triggered. And when things come up that bother me, I now have the tools to shift through them so much faster. Where in the past, it might have taken me out for months, perhaps, like something that really bothered me. Now I can shift through it in hours, day, like I know how to do it, or I have the support team in place to help me work through something. And so it just, there's a quickening, and I don't sit so much in my stuff, I suppose, as it were. So that might be a long way to say it, but it's, I think it's the allowing it, because instead of just being spiritual in your yoga class, right? Like people are spiritual in yoga class and then the rest of their day is a fucking just nightmare. It's like bringing that through your whole day, and not just having it in those moments that are designed for that piece and then separating it into two parts.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah.
That's awesome. There's so
like,
much, like my brain.
I probably have more to say, but I'll shut up. Yeah.
I'm thinking through as you're speaking. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll reflect on that. Like, whoa, you know what? You've said it all. You've covered it all. It's beautiful. Because there was moments in there. There's this thing about the food choices even being spiritual, and that sort of drinking less alcohol, and not being, I'm never going to drink it again, but just not desiring it as much, because I know that's even a shift for me. It used to feel hard to say no if someone offers me a glass of wine. I just automatically say yes. And when you go, is the wine choosing me or am I choosing the wine? Like, which way around is this going? So I love that. And that Surrender Experiment book you recommended, Michael Singer's, and that was, Yeah, that's such a lovely way to go, okay, how can I surrender to this crappy thing that just happened to me? Now I'm still going to show up and bring myself all to it in whatever way I need to do. I love that. I loved all of that. That was great.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we can still plan and still take action, but it's a different, where it's just not being attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Love that.
And, yeah.
And there being more space for those synchronicities, for those miracles, because it's not all, but that's not what I planned. So, you know, I'm not even looking over in that direction where there's something red flashing at me and going, I'm for you, because I'm over here, you know.
Hey, yeah, like it's weird. Like yeah. And I feel like everything's changing so fast. Like my plans, like maybe a year and a half ago, I was supposed to go to London. I was like, I'm going. I booked my flights. I booked my accommodation. I booked a course. I put the deposit on a course that I wanted to do. And I was like all about that. And then there was one day I read the Akashic Records. I teach it, but my coach was working with, I just asked the question at the end of a session. I said, oh, hey, what about London timing? And it's booked. Everything's booked. Why? I was like, asked the question. And she just said, you don't want to go. It's not the right time. I was like, well, it's all booked. She said, well, you can go, but you might learn the lesson the hard way, the one that you don't want to learn. And I was like, oh, crap. And so I just trusted that. I trusted that I wasn't supposed to go. Like, I'd have been kind of pushing it. And I was like, oh, maybe. I was a bit disappointed that I still haven't done that course I wanted to do. But I just cancelled everything, lost maybe $1,000 on like the part of the flight I couldn't change and the course deposit, and changed all my plans and went somewhere else. And when I got there, I had a friend that was having a really tough time and really needed me to be there. And it was so interesting. I was like, oh, maybe that's why I'm here. And it wasn't even anything to do with me or even necessarily my timing. But there was a reason I had to be in this other location to support somebody else. And so sometimes, like, we are somebody else's manifestation as well. Like, sometimes it's not all, like, we're not there necessarily for our own benefit, but sometimes I love when I show up, somebody's like, oh, you're my sign. Oh, that's, like, you were supposed to be there. So sometimes it's not even, it's like that greater puzzle and picture that we can't even, like, quite wrap our own heads around, but we're supposed to be somewhere else to help somebody else. And so just trusting that unfolding, and I'm sure it was way better for me to do that. I wasn't so stressed going to London before my event. So yeah, just trusting all of that is fascinating, and just allowing that to unfold. So yeah, and being open to the plan changing. And in the past, I mean, I've never changed a flight in my life. You know, like, I was just like, that's my plan. We're doing it. You know, so I've like changed the flight, like changing things. I'm like, oh, I've booked a one-way flight to Thailand next week, which feels weird because I was like, well, I don't know when I'm going to want to come back yet. So I'm just going to book a one-way ticket.
Just check they let you off the plane, because they won't let you out of Bali without showing you though, like, you're going to leave again.
Oh, yeah. I've got 3 months. I've got the 3 months visa. So
yeah, you're fine.
I should be good.
Love it. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, is there any advice that you, having gone on this crazy, amazing, incredible journey that you've been on, for somebody that is just getting curious, like at the beginning of this journey and ready to just test something out? Is there any advice, given your experience, that you would have for them?
So I believe there's an access point for everybody. So this beautiful series might be someone's access point. But not everything is going to resonate with you. So it's about trusting that you're drawn to the right thing. So I had a friend, he was like, fuck meditation, like, I hate it. Like, and I was like, well, doesn't mean all spirituality is crap because you hate meditation. It might be dance, it might be yoga, it might be Reiki, it might be family constellations work, like, there are so many different modalities and beautiful practitioners and different things you can do. Like, you just want to find the thing that works for you, right? So it might be 5 rhythms dance, or it might, something different is going to resonate with everybody. So I didn't start with the Akashic Records, plant medicine, and sacred sexuality, right? Like, that has evolved. I had to read The Secret first, right?
Yeah.
I went, like, one of the first, I did a lot of Tony Robbins work when I was first opening up to this stuff. So if it doesn't resonate, whatever somebody is sharing, you don't need to take it on. It might not just resonate now, it might resonate in the future, but if something feels off, you don't need to do it. So always let your own intuition override anything any fucking spiritual guru is going to tell you. You are your own authority on all of it, and just go with what feels right. And also, you know, I've worked with so many different beautiful healers and coaches and mentors, and there's sort of like it's the reason season a lifetime, right? Some people I'll do one beautiful session with, never see again. Some people I'll go to for 3 months and they're incredible, and then I move location and I'll never see them again. Some people there's one beautiful spiritual healer I go to every time I'm in LA, I'm going to look him up, right? Like, yeah. And so I have different people in different parts of the world, but just go with what resonates in the moment. Like, things pop up, right? Like, when I was supposed to do the Akashic Records, I'd never heard of it, never had a reading, but then this thing, just this awareness of Akashic Records started popping up, and I was like, I need to go learn this thing. Never had a reading, just looked, I was like, found this course, it happened to be, I was like, I would like to learn this in September. Oh, here's the course in September in LA, that's where I was at the time. I was like, I'm just going to go and do that. And so it's follow that curiosity, and you never know where it's, and just following that next piece and the next piece. The worst thing you can do is not do anything, right? Like, so if you're really like, what in the name of the wee man, I would look up local meetup groups or local courses. Go to the, you know, if you have a local yoga studio and they're doing an intro night to meditation, go to that if it speaks to you, and just follow the thing. And if you like what somebody has to say, follow them on Instagram, go to their podcast, and just and take it from there. There's no competition, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. If anyone tells you that, it's absolute nonsense. It's going to be a completely different journey for everybody. And there's no, you can't be more spiritual than somebody, you can't be less spiritual. There's no, like, I have somebody that was a little bit like, my version of spirituality is better than yours, and I think they thought I was cheating by doing plant medicine. You know, I'm like, I don't know if I'd call it cheating exactly, but you know, it's a one way, right? Like, and I don't recommend it to people, right? Like, it's you know, if it calls you, go for it. If it doesn't, don't. You know, so there's other ways. So that's another long way of saying, do what feels right.
Do what feels right. Yeah, actually, I love that you just finished on that, because quite a few of these conversations, people are using the term resonance, and if it feels resonant for you. And I'm wondering, is that one of our little spiritual kind of jargony terms that maybe not everyone's familiar with? So that sums it up. Do what feels right. Sums up what resonance means. So thank you so much for all of that. And as you pointed out, you know, sacred sexuality, which is something you're really throwing yourself at now. If someone had said that to you 10 years ago, you'd be like, God,
Jo, if somebody told me that 3 months ago, I'd have been like, fuck off. Like,
yeah,
no, like, so not a chance.
I have to put an F-bomb warning on this with you, Jo.
Sorry. But, I mean, if somebody had told me the day before I did the plant medicine that I would be doing plant medicine, I'd have been like, you're out of your mind. Yeah. Like, even until the moment before the shaman served me, I was like planning my escape route. I'm like, okay, my handbag's there, my shoes are there, I can jump over the dog, I've got my car key, I can get out of here before this shit happens. Like, what is going on? So, I mean, I don't remember that really. Like, this is bananas. But it's okay too, right? Like, it's totally bananas, and that's fine.
Oh, I love it. And bananas is okay. Like, let's be weird and woo, and that's all fun as well. If it feels good, if it feels right, and doesn't hurt anybody else. So, you know,
exactly. It's all bananas.
So that's all amazing. If people are interested in connecting with you, getting to know more about what it is that you do, and all of that stuff, tell us where to find you.
Instagram is my favorite place at the moment. I'm at the Flow Alchemist. Or you can find my name, Joanna Turner. I have a Facebook page, my website. So you can find joannaturner.com or openmyakashicrecords.com as well. So lots of different things, free meditations, all that good stuff. Yeah. And if you have any questions about anything I've shared, or I've triggered the shit out of you, think of it as a gift. But yeah, reach out and ask any questions if you want to. It's all good.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll put all the links below. And that's if you've triggered the shit out of some people. I love it, because, you know, hey, what are we triggered for and why? Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right.